Well, hey, North Park. Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we are not in Matthew right now. We are getting ready for our summer series, which is singing the Psalms through the summer. And we did that last year. We're going to do it again this year. And this summer, we're going to have a particular angle of thinking about worship, and in particular musical worship, especially as we're in this transition season with not having someone at the helm as our music lead. And so this is just an opportune time for us to refresh our minds and our hearts with regards to musical worship and how it has looked in the history of God's people, and to see what things we can draw from the scriptures for us to consider as we prepare to receive this next music director. So we're going to be in the Psalms throughout the course of the summer. However, we're not starting in the Psalms. We're actually going to be starting with one of the great psalm writers, one of the great songwriters in the scriptures, and that is none other than David himself. And so you'll see it right there. David, the great songwriter. And this is going to be from 2 Samuel chapter 6. And then next Sunday, actually, we'll have Dr. Tiberius Ratza, who will be doing 2 Samuel 9 with Mephibosheth. So we're going to do kind of 2 weeks on kind of David and learn some things from him, and that can kind of serve as maybe the context. This is kind of setting the context for the content we find in many Psalms. So with that, we're going to just kind of walk through this passage, this whole chapter, actually. We've got just kind of a couple different, really it's one story, even though it takes place over the course of 3+ months. But it is connected, and I do think that there is something in this for us to learn about the starting point of worship, and so I think it's helpful for us. So let me just get down to it here, and here it is. Just start with setting the scene. David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel. We got 30,000, and David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal, Judah. This, you'll see, maybe it's kind of a unique spelling there, and I am sorry, I don't know how to turn my spell check off on this week. I haven't had this happen, so I'll have to figure that out at another time. But this is probably was at a location that had probably some Baal worship there, which is a false god of one of the pagan gods of the surrounding nations, and in particular in the southwest corner of Judah, you'd have Philistia and the Philistines, and we know that the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant and had it for a while, and David wants to. He has since defeated the Philistines, and he wants to restore the ark back to its proper dwelling place, where sacrifice can be reestablished and worship can be reestablished according to the Levitical design. And so he goes to bring up the ark of God. Which is called by the name of the Lord of hosts. Who sits enthroned on the cherubim. Okay, so what we got going on here is I am really terrible at drawing, yet it's not stopping me here. So it was a box, and these would have been some ringlets, and then you would have had these are the cherubim, and those are wings right there. Oh wow, that's not great. And so there it is. And then you would have had a pull that would have gone through the ringlets right here. And what you have going on right here is the mercy seat, where the presence of God rested. So this is a big deal here. Restoring the ark is it's much more than just a relic of the religion. It comes with the very presence of God dwelling with his people. And so we see it's the ark of God, it's the Lord of hosts who sits enthroned on the cherubim there. This is a huge deal. The presence of God with his people, how God chose to dwell amongst his people. And they carried it here in and so they carried the ark of God on a new cart. Now we look at this and we say, new is good, right? A new cart, one that has not been used for any other profane purpose. This is one that is used exclusively for the transportation of the ark of God. That's great. Except, do you remember over here? The pole? Don't forget. God designed ark to be carried by priests, not on a cart. So that's important, and we could find that in the Torah there. Maybe just add that in there just so you can see. Per Torah. So they tried to put it on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on a hill, and Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were driving the cart with the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. Okay, so we have these two sons of Abinadab, Uzzah, Ahio. They had been housing the ark for some time now, and they're leading the way at transporting the ark to the designated place, which is Jerusalem, city of David. And David and all the house were celebrating. All of the house of Israel, they were celebrating before the Lord with songs, and lyres, and harps, and tambourines, and castanets, and cymbals. This is musical worship happening here. And includes all the instruments. And later on, we'll see it comes with shouting of praise and even dancing later on. And so they're just deeply excited, praising, celebrating that the presence of God is being restored. When they came to the threshing floor of Nakon, Uzzah put out his hand on the ark and took hold of it, and the oxen stumbled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error. Because of his error. And he died there beside the ark of God. This is, we would say, what error? Well, there's really two. One, he touched the ark, and he is sinful and unclean to touch the holy ark. Ark is holy. But number two, the other error is that didn't follow God's prescription for carrying ark. So we have twofold, and one kind of begets the other there. And so the anger of God comes out upon Uzzah, but look at this, and David was angry. David was angry over this because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah. And the place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day. And he said, how can the ark of the Lord come to me? And this is an important point for us to note here. How can the ark of the Lord come to me? David was afraid of the Lord, and David finally, I don't know if I'd want to say finally necessarily, because we get glimpses of it prior to this point, but David sees his maybe I'll put it like this. David is humbled. David is humbled low before awesome presence of God's holiness and greatness. The king comes low, and that's an important point there. So what's he do? Well, he certainly doesn't want to take it with him anymore. And so David was not willing to take the ark of the Lord into the city of David. But David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, which is resident of Gath, which is where Goliath is from. So this guy is most likely not an Israelite. He might be a convert. Maybe he was a Philistine that was won over by David when David was there, and followed him with him. Maybe he's just a deserter of Philistia. We don't really know, but there's a certain irony here that the Israelite who touches the ark is struck dead, but the non-Israelite the non-Israelite that has the ark placed in his house for 3 months is blessed. The Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. So there's an irony there that Israelite is struck down, but this non-Israelite is blessed. And even in that, we see that even though Israel is God's covenant people, God is not, he is not anti the nations. He's pro the nations. God is the God of the nations, but the nations, by and large, are wandering from him. But if anyone from any of the Gentiles would turn and look to him, he has blessing in store. He still blesses. And it was told to King David that the Lord has blessed the household of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him, because the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. So David brought up with rejoicing. And when those who bore the ark of God, the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, he sacrificed an ox and a fattened animal, and David danced. Rejoicing. David danced before the Lord with all his might. David was wearing a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, with the sound of the horn. As the ark of the Lord came to the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, this is noteworthy here that she's referred to as the daughter of Saul 3 times. The daughter of Saul, daughter of Saul, Michal, the daughter of Saul. And we should make note of that. Because it plays a little bit of a role in their dialogue back and forth. So the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, which is Jerusalem. Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. He's saw King David leaping and dancing right there. And they brought the ark of the Lord, brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. So this is going to be a tabernacle type dwelling, we would presume. And David offered burnt offerings. So we have more worship happening, peace offerings before the Lord. When David had finished offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord. The Lord of hosts, and distributed among all the people, the whole multitude of Israel, both men and women, a cake of bread, a portion of meat, and a cake of raisins to each other. Then all the people departed, each to his own house. And so this is deep worship and celebration and praise here. And when David returned to bless his household, so look at what David's trying to do here. David returned in order to bless his household. He's coming to bring blessing. But Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "Oh, how the king of Israel honored himself today." And that's certainly some serious sarcasm here. Uncovering himself today in the eyes of his servants, female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself. And David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me prince over Israel to the people of the Lord." And so he's saying his heart was postured for God alone, not appearances to please people. Even though he's the king, that's what the king does. The king has to keep up a certain image in front of the people. But he says his dancing was not for the sake of what people would think, but it was out of an overflow of joy in his heart for the Lord. And he says, it was before the Lord who chose me over your father. And we see that Saul was obviously had his household ended and established and anointed David to be king over Israel. Saul was Israel's man, but David was God's man. And David can acknowledge that he is where he is because God chose him. This right here. This is the only reason. He was the least of his brothers, a shepherd, and there's no way that he should ever be king on the throne unless it be the Lord's will. And he goes on, "I will celebrate before the Lord." I love the declaration there. And I will celebrate before the Lord. There is nothing you're going to do to stop me, Michal. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes. The Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, says, "my eyes." So Masoretic text has your eyes, Septuagint has my eyes, and I don't know which one is supposed to be, but the point remains the same, is that he has a concern for the Lord rather than his own pride. And so he will, David will humble himself to exalt God. That's his new priority. Not as necessarily his new priority, but it was something that was missed out on when he was transporting the ark in the first place. There was a certain disregard for God's commands in a small thing. It's a small thing, and it's still not. It's not done. I don't in any way think from a bad heart because it was put on a new cart and whatnot. But nevertheless, it was not taking seriously things that God has said. And then he just goes on to say, "But by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them shall I be held in honor." They'll recognize it for what it is. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. People will say that David no longer knew her. Some will say God closed her womb. Could be either, could be both. The point is, no heir came from her line of Saul is over. Now we'll see that it's not necessarily over because of this, because there is actually a descendant of Saul's that will come up in next week's message when Dr. Ratza preaches over Mephibosheth. But we'll leave that for next week. But what we have here is we have David going through a series of events that teach us something about the way that we approach God and worship Him. And I think that these lessons are going to be a really key starting point for us as we go through our summer of thinking about worship and musical worship and things like that. And as we learn from David in a variety of his songs that are inscribed in the Psalms, and so I think there's a lot for us here, but I don't want to get too much into it because I want to save that for Sunday's message. So please pray for me, church. I always ask for that and need your prayers, and I look forward to gathering together with you. To exalt the name of Jesus together. And so, love you. See you in a couple days.